Welcome to yet another episode where we're going to be making this particular seamless looping animation. We're going to go through all of the mistakes and the thought processes that went into creating this particular animation. The original reason I made this was to actually make an image for a different project. This is the image that I was trying to create using cycles. This is the noisy image and this is the denoised image. So first we're going to create this and then we're going to convert it to a looping animation in Eevee. The entire video has been sped up to 2.5x the normal speed. I knew that I wanted some form of dice which would have question marks on the different sides. That was the main goal. I also wanted them to glow in a neon green color. So I thought I'd have glass with some sort of glowing core, which is what I was trying to create over here. I knew that I was going to eventually use cycles, but I wanted to try out using Eevee initially because I knew later on I would also have to use Eevee itself to create the loop to make this particular video. I initially wanted to make sure that the colors were being assigned correctly, which it was, but for some reason, even though I had my screen space reflections on, diffractions on, I had it checked in the material properties as well, it still wasn't showing up. And again, even today, I do not know why this happened, why I wasn't able to get the emission to show through the object in Eevee. When I do figure it out, I will definitely use it in a future video and show it to all of you as well. Last time, since my recording software couldn't record while using cycles, I decided to make sure that I was using cycles using my GPU, and I kept checking to see that OBS is still recording. For some reason, my CPU does work a bit faster than the GPU on cycles. I'm not sure why, but that just is the case. However, for this tutorial, I chose to use the GPU to compute for cycles. I initially wanted just the edges of the cube to light up, so that's why I was using my go-to layer weight technique. But then I realized that that wasn't looking that great, and if I wanted just the edges to light up, I could have a cube that consists of only the edges. So I inset the faces and deleted them to create a cube with just the edges. And then I decided to crank it up. I needed to select a good font for the question mark. I didn't have any in mind. This was just the first one that I looked at and it seemed well enough for my purposes, so I decided to go ahead and use it. I just checked if all of the question marks were looking like question marks and they weren't reverse question marks. However, I definitely missed out, especially the bottom face. So I did have reverse question marks present, but it's all right. It looked fine for the way the cubes were splattered around. So I went ahead and just left it as such. I converted the text to mesh so that I could make all of them a single object and then just copy paste the object multiple times to create a number of dice with random orientations. I chose to manually place these cubes around, although I did have a good enough mind to just duplicate a lot of them on top and then switch on physics and gravity and have them fall so that they naturally orient themselves randomly. However, what I thought at the time was that it makes more sense to do this randomly, but manually, because there's just a few of them, and if I was to make it an animation or a simulation to have them fall, then creating the animation later on would require me to delete those cache datas, have all of them separate again, add keyframes again to each of them separately, and so that they become still. So doing that would have been far more hectic than just placing them manually like this. At this stage, I wanted to see if it's working with Eevee, just in case, but no, it still wasn't, and I thought that okay, I'll render this out first and then I will think about the problem with Eevee later on. Just before this, there was a small cut. I did render the previous thing out once, and I realized that I wanted a main element. So I just wanted one of the cubes to be a bit bigger, and that's why I just came back to make the cube a bit larger. So that was the first area that I actually cut out a bit of work, but that's all right. It was just rendering it out. So then once I had them placed in a better way, something that fit the region better to what I was trying to do, I realized that my question marks were incorrect, and I tried replacing them, but then I realized that it just wasn't going to work because the origin was not at the center, and changing that back to the center would also be a headache. So I just decided to leave it after a little bit of trial. So once I had everything as I liked, the only thing was left to render to get this particular image. This is the noisy image, and this is the denoised image. I, for some reason, liked the noisy image a bit better. Adding a few more samples would have made it better, but I was short on time, so I decided to leave it as that. So here I was trying to figure out what was going wrong. I initially just tried to see if making the glass green worked, and it looked good, but I still wanted to figure out what was wrong. So I tried placing a different cube inside, and I saw that, yeah, the cube was being seen. And the reason why I thought that it should be seen is because we could see right through the glass and we could see the other question marks on the other side. But for some reason, we weren't able to see the light that was supposed to be emitted from the cube inside. So I thought of just placing an actual light source inside to see if that worked. And this is what it looked like, which clearly, I guess it would work in some scenarios, but for the look that I was going for, this just wasn't looking the way I wanted it to look. So I realized that my original idea of just changing the color of the glass to green looked more like what I was searching for. I wanted to use a different form of looping for this particular animation compared to most of the ways how I was looping in my previous videos. So here, the technique that I wanted to try was to just have the camera move through the cubes, looking like you keep moving forever and there's just an infinite array of cubes. That's the look that I wanted to go for. So the first thing that I wanted to do is that as you go further into the distance, the cubes should vanish. So that's why I added in the principled volume shader. But I eventually didn't use the volume shader. I didn't look far enough for the density to actually kick in. So I guess that was just a bit of computational power that was pretty much wasted. I should have realized, but I didn't. So here what I did is just took the entire set and just made a duplicate copy of it. As soon as I made it, I realized that no, I require maybe a few more to fill in the voids, because as we go further, it narrows down and the edges start looking empty. So I just needed a few more to fill in the sides. So that's what I was doing over here by just duplicating them and moving them around a bit more to add in a few more cubes, and that is. So after selecting all of them, I just had to duplicate them and move them, and I moved them along with the grid. So once it was moved along with the grid, I knew that my camera would have to move in some integer value. So that's why I wouldn't have to think too much about when the loop should end. Another thing that might be useful information is that I used Shift R to just duplicate the copying and moving multiple times so that it just goes into the distance. So Shift R repeats a set of actions done previously. Here I realized that the bloom just wasn't looking nice. I guess it wasn't looking nice because I had the principled volume in there already. I didn't notice that, but yeah, that's why I just decided to leave bloom out of it. And now I had to figure out exactly how much I'd have to move. So I figured out which cube corresponds to the cube of the next iteration and then just placed it over there. Saw what number I approximately got, and then I knew since it was going to be an integer, typed in the integer, and I got a perfect seamless loop, as you can see. So once I was done with that, I thought that this was a bit slow. So instead of making it 10 seconds long, I decided just to make it a 5-second long loop. There are multiple ways of speeding this up. I could have just gone twice the distance, but I realized why render out 10 seconds when you can just render out 5 seconds, because it's going to be a loop anyway. So that's why I shortened it to a 5-second loop. And once I made sure that, yeah, it was looping perfectly and everything looked good, I made sure that there was no other lights present in the scene, because then there might be a difference in lighting. But once I checked that was not the case, all was left was to render this particular looping animation. Seamless, continuous loop. Hopefully you learned something from this. Definitely check out our other videos and subscribe. We'll be making much more content just like this very soon.